one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Jenna, could we have roll call, please?
Yes. Trustee Stout.
Here.
Trustee Rhodey.
Here.
Trustee Belt. Here. Trustee Pater. Here. Trustee Kreiser. Here. Trustee Grabowski.
Here.
President Knudsen.
Here. Second item is public hearings. We have none. Approval of item 3, approval of the regular village board meeting October 21st, 2025. I hope everyone's had a chance to go over them. Are there any questions, comments, or corrections as of the way they are presented this evening?
I've got one. While I was not here reading through it, it's just a clerical issue. The Lehman Park patio passes a 6-0 when you only had 5 voting members here. So just clerical. The Lehman Park patio.
Would you like to make a motion with the correction?
Does anyone else have any corrections or amendments to it? Make a motion to approve with the correction to the vote tally on item C.
Second, Kreiser.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes are hereby adopted. Item 4, citizens' comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to share their opinions with board members on any topic they choose. However, due to Wisconsin open meeting laws, the board is not able to answer questions or respond to your comments. All comments should be directed to the board. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker, with time being indicated by an audible alarm. When the alarm sounds, speakers are asked to conclude their comments. Speakers are asked to please use the podium and state their name and address. Is there anybody here that would like to make a comment at this time? Okay, ordinances, number 5. Ordinance 2025-14, an ordinance to create section 2107 of the municipal code of the village of Pewaukee regarding Lehman Family Lakeside Park watercraft launching fees and a penalty for non-payment of fees. I hope everyone's read over them. Are there any questions or comments as it relates to that particular item?
I think it's a great idea.
Anyone else? Do I have do I have a motion then?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I guess I do have one
Oh,
question.
go ahead.
And probably for
Welcome, Nick.
yeah, Director Phelan. Just the enforcement of it obviously falls on the village police. Is this just from comments, or I mean calls, or will somebody be monitoring? Who's in charge of notifying the police?
Yeah, so we'll put the whole process in place on the back end. The first part was we've worked with the PD to make sure we have their support. They're willing to pursue this. So in the lease with Beachside, who kind of is here in case nobody had spoken with him yet, but Beachside staff in their lease manage the boat launch and the gas sales. So I talked with Ken actually earlier this week about what that process will look like. We'll be contacting the vendors that we have on file to alert them this will be the process in 2026. I will prepare their staff, or management at least, to go to their staff with half sheets that, because they have been approaching vendors when they come out to complete a boat launch, and they just have given every reason under the sun that makes them somehow seem exempt from having to pay, which is not the case. You know, it's high school, college age staff. We don't expect them to get in a fist fight at the boat launch, right? We don't want that. So we will inform these companies, this is the expectation. This is what will happen if you do not abide by what we expect. And then we'll have half sheets for them, approach them at the launch. How will you be paying for your boat launch today, or do you have your annual pass with you? Yes or no? Okay, to complete payment, you can go inside and do that to get your daily pass, or you could purchase an annual launch pass there. And then after that, if they refuse, they can hand them the half sheet and say, you know, we will be documenting your license plate and sharing that with the village police department, and we'll have on the sheet what the fine is today.
Okay, and so this was, because I know it was mentioned in there about valet services and the companies that seem to be taking advantage of the system. Is this also for individual residents?
Very rarely.
Okay.
I don't think we've ever been met with, no, I'm not willing to pay on the residential side. The only thing I can say to that is occasionally in the after hours box, so like early morning, late evening, we will get what we've started to call like a phantom payment, where they take the envelope. I don't know what they all do, if they just take it and put it right in, or if they pretend they're doing something in their car and put it into the box. So I'll go collect the after hour envelopes. This year, it hasn't really been a problem. Last year, we had more of it. You know, last year we probably had 5 or 6 of them. Big picture, 5 or 6 out of 50 or 75, not a huge deal. You don't always get exactly $7, but I think the likelihood, if we surveyed all of you, if you had $7 exact right now in your wallets, would be slim. But I don't think it's a residential thing. I think it's much more a commercial thing. I had emailed Administrator Heiser earlier today, and I think the one thing that we would maybe want to consider is right now we sell a daily launch and an annual launch. The maximum fee you can charge for the annual launch is 10 times the daily launch. And maybe the terminology does actually come from the DNR, so I could ask our contact there. But it's not inconceivable that a company could purchase a daily launch. If you use the term daily, would assume that it's good for the whole day.
Yep.
And if you go complete 10 launches in that day for $10 instead of 10 launches worth, that doesn't really seem right, because what we're trying to do with collecting the launch fees is be able to pay when we have to replace the launch. That's what the dollars are collected.
So that was kind of what I was thinking, was if the some of the motivation behind this ordinance is on the companies that might be taking advantage of the system, are you also looking at doing maybe a corporate level?
Can't.
You can't.
So we pursued that with the DNR, and they said they cannot recommend that because they don't allow it. And should they find out that you are doing that, you could have it.
Okay, because it's a public launch or whatever, so you're
It
basically
can only be 10 times.
you're basically
There is no matter
privatizing.
what.
You'd basically be privatizing it at that point. Okay.
So I do think it's worth looking into the daily terminology versus like a one-time launch pass, because truthfully, it's the amount of usage that's going to impact the lifespan of.
Right.
So if they come 10 times in a day or one time, that's a significantly different amount.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so it should be a per launch, not a per
That's,
day.
I would
Yeah.
agree, but I've seen it termed daily on the DNR site, so I want to ask them for clarification.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is the ordinance enforceable via video?
I would believe so.
Yeah, so I mean, the ordinance is very simple. It's if you don't pay the fee, it's a citable offense. How that becomes citable, how the police department gathers that evidence, that's going to be on a case-by-case basis. But video would certainly be the best way to go.
And we do have upgraded cameras that face the launch.
So we've had those before, and the one in the launch, I believe you can pretty easily pull a license plate, unless they're. As I say that, I don't know that all vehicles are required to have a front license plate.
In Wisconsin, they are.
Usually,
If your car doesn't come with a license plate holder, I was told you don't have to.
so that would be the
Like
only
my
thing.
car's
is
from
they would
Michigan, so it does
likely-
not
But I
have
mean, you
one.
could for sure get make, model, and ideally Beachside would be contacting the PD
Or-
dispatch.
I think it's good enough to pull registration numbers off the boat as well.
You know, we wouldn't be, we would be asking them to call after the interaction, you know, not on Tuesday after a Saturday.
Right. Yeah, absent video, the PD is gonna be relying probably on written statements from staff.
I assume signage is gonna be?
Yes, sir.
Is there an electronic payment system set up, or is it still envelope?
I was actually going to compliment you on that. I saw
Yeah,
the sign for
so
the first time ever.
We have two different versions. So during the daytime hours, their best bet is going to be going inside to physically pay, which they can use a card. For the after hours, though, there is a QR code that links to the Beachside Boat and Bait POS system for electronic.
And does that require license plate info? I just was thinking, like,
So
how do
that's
you
part
match?
of the process. I've already started kind of creating this documentation, and it would involve getting their license plate in, kind of a spreadsheet grid, so that we can pair it with the vehicle instead of just, because it's gonna take 10 minutes for the first person to say, I forgot my launcher.
Mhm.
So we'll have as much of that taken care of as we can for some kind of.
And then maybe eliminating the envelope system with the cash payments, because then
The
there's.
envelope system still works for the after hours, because they don't actually get a launch ticket. So they can only purchase a daily launch pass that route. They can't get an annual launch
Right.
pass with a cash payment in that after hours.
So what I'm thinking is like how we park and pay these days, is you scan the QR code, put it into the space or your license plate info. The parking meter person will come around, paid, matches the license plate. So like if, it'd be easy to track via video surveillance and also going in and being like, okay, you know the time of the transaction and the time of that car was there. No transaction was made at that time, easy and done. Instead of phantom payments, envelopes trying to match the whole game kind of thing, it's just only electronic payment.
Yeah, I think that's worth looking into. And I'm sure their POS system pulls timestamps of transactions and all of that. So I don't know what the audience prefers. I would say it's for the launches, it's probably closer to 50-50 than like the gas or something like that. But you know what it costs to go in there. It's easier to pay cash than something that's not.
Right, okay.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion again?
Yeah, sure. Nick, we don't charge a credit card fee, do we? Yep, I will make a motion to adopt, thank you, ordinance 2025-14, to create section 2107 of the municipal code dealing with watercraft launch fees and penalty for non-payment.
Second, Peter?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby adopted. Ordinance 2025-14. Item 6 is resolutions. Review, discussion, and possible action on resolution number 2025-14 to amend and establish certain fees related to Forest Hill Cemetery. We had this here last week, our last meeting, and there were changes made. Are there any further discussion, comments, or questions as it relates to this particular item?
I had one question.
Sure.
An unfortunate question to ask, but in regards to the infant burial, do we have any written parameters of what that exactly means?
You mean age?
Like age, size,
I
yeah.
believe we do in our ordinance. Matt Gerlins, do you know if we do in our ordinance? I don't think we distinguish an age.
I do not know off.
Just wondering if that would be a good idea to add so that we're not arguing over what an infant is with anyone at that stage.
Right. Would that be a change in the ordinance, Matt, to add that, or would we do it?
If you're
A
changing the
resolution.
definition of infant, that would probably be an ordinance change. That would not be something that you would do through
But are we
resolution.
Are we changing it, or are we just adding it.
Well,
Well,
adding it.
that's what I would have to determine first. If you
Right.
already have a definition, you can't change it by resolution. So let me look.
We were actually thinking about that in the office too. I'm not sure if we ever kind of had that on file, what that actually means.
Yeah.
We were kind of maybe thinking birth to,
What I would say.
According to Google, a 2-year-old is not an infant.
oh, birth to one?
Infant is birth to 1-year-old, while toddlers are typically 1 to 3 years old.
Okay.
So your ordinance, your code defines infant as stillborn and up to age of 2.
Oh, so we do have it in there.
Is
Okay.
in the ordinance.
Okay,
I'm
Leave it as
comfortable
it
with
is.
that. Yeah.
okay.
Thank you, Matt.
Does our ordinance define when residence and non-resident purchase is taking place? In my mind, you have to be a resident to purchase at the resident rate. After that, if you move away, that's fine. You can't be a long-term resident, move to Florida, and then claim to be a resident. Is that stated in the ordinance?
It is not.
Do we have to define resident versus non-resident?
Well, we had talked last time that it was
It is not in the ordinance to answer your
purchase
question.
if you are physically a resident. I don't know.
grandfathered in, right?
No, no,
No.
at the time of purchase of the, because we removed the resident, non-resident from the burial, so it's resident, non-resident, like at the time you're physically purchasing the plot. Are you, whoever's buying it, the resident or non-resident?
You can buy it now and move out of state,
Correct.
but my stance is, in order to get the resident rate, you have to be a tax-paying
Permanent
member,
address.
resident of the village of Pewaukee.
Agreed.
That's what we do in the office, their permanent address in the village, that's what we define the resident as, but I believe, yeah,
Okay.
Gerlinski said that's not physically in our ordinance stating that.
It is not.
I think when the board discussed this at the last meeting, we settled on the common understanding of resident versus non-resident.
Right, so if they are most of the time in Florida, but their driver's license says Florida and that's their permanent, but they spend 4 months here, I would consider that a Florida resident.
Any other questions or comments?
With that conversation, just made me think of something. Whoever thought this one would have so many discussion points.
Not Jenna.
No.
Yeah, right. So if someone has passed and someone is buying the plot,
Plot itself, okay.
is the resident fee for the person who will be residing in the plot or for who's physically purchasing
Who's
it?
purchasing it,
Who's
so it's-
purchasing it?
yeah,
Okay,
yep, so who's
Oh.
purchasing it? Yep.
okay.
Wow, I would not have thought about that, so interesting.
Seems a little odd, but I guess that's the best way to
So
probably.
I guess the
Right, 'cause
moral of the
they're-
story is
yeah.
here is have foresight and buy your plots
Right.
early if you want your discount.
So what's your suggestion, sir?
A suggestion?
Mm-hmm.
My agenda item. This is the village clerk.
I suppose would the best way to be, if there's no changes, could we say approve as presented? If there's no changes, of course,
Yeah, if that's the
if
action of the
that's
board.
what the question is, yeah.
All right, so we have the definition of infant in there. We have the understanding of what a resident and non-resident is, and everyone's okay with the fees. I'll make a motion to, let's see, pass resolution number 2025-14 to amend and establish certain fees related to Forest Hill Cemetery.
Second, Peter?
We have a motion and a second. Are there any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution number 2025-14 is hereby adopted. Old business, review, discussion, and possible action on 2026 budget proposals for the village I'm sure everybody's looked them over, and I'm sure they've got tons of questions. So Matt, you want to just give us a quick overlay?
Thank you, President Knudsen. I believe this marks the fourth time that the board has been considering the general fund, and then the different funds at different times have been introduced. The changes since the October 21 meeting, there was a very, very, very minor adjustment to the library budget, $21. And we have final numbers from the Joint Parks and Recreation Department, which were included in the documents in the packet. And based on the discussion at the October 21 meeting, it was my understanding that the board was interested in using some of the infrastructure fund balance on the 2026 road projects. So I pulled $500,000 out of the borrowing amount and replaced it with $500,000 from the infrastructure fund balance. So those numbers are reflected in the packet materials as well. Otherwise, there's no other changes from what you've already seen and discussed. One question that Trustee Belt inquired about at the last meeting was how the projections look for finishing up 2025. The fund balance projection in your packet is fairly accurate based on up-to-date current versus, or actual versus budgeted reports as of the end of October, of about $200,000 being added to the infrastructure fund. And then I did attempt to reflect the proceeds from debt for the water utility as well.
Any questions?
Had a couple. This one might be an easy one to answer. So the in lieu of taxes has gone down every year. And we're budgeting for 2026 lower than what our actual is for 2025. What keeps decreasing? Because I can't imagine we entered into an in lieu of taxes agreement that has a sunsetting.
Yeah, so in that, are you talking about, you're not talking about the utility one, you're talking about the line item after
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I think that was just my attempt to be conservative with the revenue figure.
Okay. Which I appreciate, because obviously if it still balances, that's fine. There was some other anomalies that I'm sure you could clear up for me after the meeting, so I don't think we have to go through them here unless that's the preference of anyone.
And I'll remind the board members that any questions that you have about the budget aren't limited to board meeting times. You can send me an email or call me anytime, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. Otherwise, to remind the board that the public hearing is scheduled for November 18th. And there is some time urgency in that if the board isn't comfortable on November 18th, then there is some quick work we have to do to make sure we approve something, because we have to have that data to the county fairly quickly for them to print the tax bills.
Well, actually, then I do have one for, if I could ask Supervisor Bickler real quick. There's a line item for police vehicle maintenance in the police budget, and it's gone up exponentially from 24 to 25. Was our mechanic doing the majority of the maintenance on the police vehicles in this year? When did we bring him on? Okay, so they're counting that into maintenance. Okay. All right. Because what we have budgeted for 26 is significantly under what they spent in 25, so that's, okay.
Are there any other questions or comments? So I know we're slated for action, but I would think that this is more or less informational only.
Yeah, what I typically do when I write this agenda item, President Knudsen, is I allow for action in the event there is disagreement among the board members. So if there was a disagreement of vision about which direction, like cutting this item or cutting that item, I give the opportunity for there to be formal action for a decision point and for clarity for staff.
Okay.
So there's no action required.
Okay. Well, then, if there are no further questions or comments, we're gonna move on to new business. Review, discussion, and possible action to confirm committee appointments by the village president. I would like to nominate Chris Krasovich to the Aquatic Weed Commission. She was a village trustee, and she has said that she would like to be on it, so I would like to move her forward to that position.
Motion to appoint Chris Krasovich to the Aquatic Weed Commission.
Second, Rudy.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Review, discussion, and possible action to cancel the village board meeting on January 6, 2026. It's been the it's been on the board for many years now that the first meeting in January has been a very light agenda, so we've canceled it, but Matt, would you like to just did you have anything to say?
Well, my family is planning a trip to visit my in-laws and my wife's side of the family in the UK that first half of January, so this would contribute greatly to our ability to do that.
Is there any questions or comments? We have the first meeting would be in the second meeting, actually, in January. Is everybody okay with that? Okay, so then could I have a motion to cancel the village board meeting on January 6th?
Make a motion to cancel the village board meeting on January 6th,
2026.
2026.
Second, Grabowski.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, everyone. Review, discussion, and possible action on the replacement of temporary medium and Capitol Drive and proposed final length. I was gonna ask Matt to do this, but I know Jim has been very involved in this. Which one would like to take it?
How about if I start?
Yep.
Okay, sounds good.
And just kind of set the context a little bit of why this is before you tonight.
Okay.
So the Capitol Drive Road project, the 2025 road project in Capitol, is wrapping up. And it's reached that point where the crew is poised to replace those temporary delineators that had marked the no-turn median in the street. And so Director Beekle had an idea that perhaps we could try installing them to the length that the DOT had in their drawing that they sent the village earlier this spring, when we had considered making that part of putting the concrete barrier in as part of our 2025 road project. So in consideration of changing that length of those temporary bollards, we had consulted the chairperson of the Public Works and Safety Committee, Trustee Grabowski, and had a discussion. And the other piece of this is we know that the Wisconsin DOT has money that they budget every year for safety projects, and this would qualify as one of their safety projects, and they're proposing doing the work or paying for the work in 2026. And at some point, they're going to come to the village and ask what our answer is to their proposal. So it was the thought of the three of us, Director Beekle, Trustee Grabowski, and myself, to have this come before the board for further discussion to help the board essentially reach a decision point or become more comfortable at the topic before we're required to make a decision.
So adding even more context to it, if you remember back a month or two ago, it was 3 months ago, it came in front of Public Works and Safety regarding the length of those medians. Because where we're at now is the OCR has sent a mandate that they need to be lengthened beyond what the current concrete median is to deter left turns from Capitol north onto Capitol towards Village Park, and then Oakton south onto Clark, because they want to avoid queuing backing up over the tracks. With that being said, it came in front of our board because it was, WISDOT was giving us the direction of either you guys can do this yourself or as part of this project, or you can wait and we will find money to do this in 2026. And our stance was, we're not going to, load the gun for them and shoot ourselves in the foot, because by lengthening the medians to what WISDOT had designed, the innocent casualty in this is it would eliminate the left turn from Capitol going past Village Park heading east towards 16. And then it would eliminate the left turn from Clark onto Oakton heading towards the lake. The big part of that is the left turn heading towards 16 being eliminated. Because if you eliminate that, then we eliminate any possibility of being able to close the downtown for festivals and parties and such, as well as the amount of traffic that would steer then past the beach, of which we already have safety concerns and we know. So the OCR's mandate and court order was to extend the medians to, and Attorney Gerlinski, feel free to slap my hand or silence me at any point. But the court order as read in 2021 or 2022 stipulates that the medians have to be made permanent and extended to take all reasonable measures to deter the left turns and queuing over the tracks. At no point does it give a set quantifiable distance that they have to be. So WISDOT took liberty with the design, of which them not knowing our village and what the potential ramifications of taking away those left turns would be, and the other safety hazards that would incur as just an innocent casualty of it, they designed it. So what my recommendation is to the board, and what I've talked about with Administrator Heiser and Attorney Gerlinski, is that I feel it's in the village's best interest to take control of this project. Because up until this point, the design of the current crossing and current medians and current sidewalks and all that, we used the answer when questioned on it, when we first lost those left turns, was we had no say in it. We didn't pay for it, we didn't design it, we didn't construct it, we had no say. We do take safety very serious in the village, and we care about all our residents and how it's going to impact their daily lives. So I think we have the ability to, for a potential minimal cost, however, there is still a potential of WISDOT reimbursing us if we do the project ourselves. But if we pay for it, we control the design of it. And I feel that we still have the ability to comply with the OCR court order mandate, which we have to address. We can't just ignore it, because it is a court order. However, taking all reasonable steps possible to mitigate the left turns to prevent queuing over the track without taking away the left turns towards 16 and Clark to Oakton. So I feel like it's in the village's best interest to take control of this project. While it may potentially come with a cost, the benefit is that we get to have a say in how this is constructed, as well as taking all steps possible to mitigate any liability while adding safety measures to the OCR standards, which will then address their concerns as we go forward for the quiet zone. But we're open to any questions on this, because I'm sure there's a lot of them.
Nick?
Or wait, did I cover everything, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think that was very thorough.
Okay.
So I'm going to try to summarize this. So we thought the state was going to pay for it, and in doing so, they were going to expand it and eliminate all left turns, potentially shut down beach parties, and make it a complete headache for our residents, right?
That's a good summary.
Yeah, and then, but then what we could do is we could fund it, make it short, keep those left turns, keep the beach parties, make it to the court order, but we would have to fund it with the potential of us getting reimbursed.
Correct. And when I say fund it, I believe when we originally had it, because we originally had Director Beekle added as an add-on to the street project from our flat work company, and I think it came in like slightly under $20,000.
Right.
You know, so we're not talking like the big construction, which was like $1 million,
Right.
where we were like, we don't have any say in this. So yes, it would be a small nominal cost now with a potential for reimbursement, as WISDOT said that if you did the work, we will still look to reimburse, but that's not a guarantee. So I need to put that asterisk, that's not guaranteed we'll get reimbursed, but we will have control of the project.
So what are the next steps to ensure that we spend the 20,000 to keep it as is, apply to the court order, and keep our village?
So yeah, it wouldn't be keeping it as is, it would be doing a design that it would be in the village's
That's what I
best
meant to
interest.
say.
Yeah, so.
Make it permanent to what it
Yep.
is, yeah.
Yeah,
what-
so I guess the next step would be, is that a direction or is that an action to have Attorney Grelinski address or notify WISDOT of our intent to take over the project?
Well, I don't know if it's I guess it depends on the conversations that Director Beekle and the administrator had with DOT, because I have not been privy to those.
That's
So
right.
I don't know where things are at in terms of what they're waiting for, in terms of a decision point for us. Is it going to be,
It's my understanding that they're waiting for Village to invite them in to do the work in 2026 and do the project. Because they don't have the authority to work on a village street on their own.
gotcha.
So even though they're included on the order with the village,
Right.
they're not free to act unilaterally.
So then what's being discussed here is a step beyond just authorization of WISDOT to come in and do the project that they've designed. It's really communicating to them that we've reviewed the design. The village is not satisfied with it for the reasons that have been discussed here. And we would like to take the reins. So that would probably be a communication that would come from either myself or Director Beekle.
So would it require like a motion to direct you then?
I think that would be appropriate, just because it's, I mean, you're either gonna have to take action, actually, this board wouldn't, because Director Beekle would have the authority to give essentially work in our right of way. Now, if there's going to be a change to the status quo of that, yes, I think it should be a motion to direct staff to communicate the specific intentions of the board.
Before we do that, is there any Hail Mary of a chance that we deny their design, WISDOT, and then propose an alternative design? Or have we done that?
So that has been discussed with Director Beekle, and that was a recommendation as well from Attorney Grelinski to go back to WISDOT to see if they would amend their design.
And it would have got bumped back like a few years, right? It would have like,
It's, yeah, so I don't know where that would fall in the process if you know, if we could basically take the action that if they are now willing to amend their design, then we, you know, take the reins of the project. But,
I mean,
is it, yeah,
it's $20,000 to ensure all the revenue, everything else down at the beach, and also not impact
the safety.
traffic and the flow of our residents, and we're complying with the safety court order.
Yeah, the OCR's mandate was to eliminate the potential for a catastrophic event, is what their wording was, I think it says in here. And we do take that serious, and we absolutely want to eliminate the possibility or potential for a catastrophic event. But I also see directing hundreds of more cars down in front of our lakefront on a busy Saturday afternoon, potential for a catastrophic event. or semis, because now semis won't be able to make that turn if we lengthen the medians to what they require. They won't be able to make a right turn off of Village Park to head, you know, and so it's, I think, you know, you can't cut the nose off to spite the face. You can't do anything. Like, it's one of those where I feel like it's in our best interest to try to mitigate all safety risks, and for the small cost that it potentially has in the village, or potentially not, it would be in our best interest.
So we believe that if we completely control the project, put a permanent median in to our length as we define it, do we believe that's going to meet the OCR's requirements?
So,
Say that again, I'm sorry.
yeah.
If we put a permanent median in to the length that we're talking about right now, similar to the temporary bollards that we had on, but it's a permanent cement, is that going to meet the requirements of the OCR?
If, that would be up to the village if they take the reins from WISDOT to essentially
But yes,
show OCR, this is what we've done, is this in compliance? And if OCR says no, then the village is essentially responsible for the modifications to get it in.
so it's our responsibility now to, because they've come back and said, your time's up. You have to comply with this court order. And when you read the court order, it says to take all reasonable steps. So as long as we lengthen the medians, make them permanent, put all the necessary signage in, do everything possible within the village's, you know, scope to mitigate that left turn, then that complies with the court order that we are under.
But to your point, Trustee Rhodey, if the village does take on, essentially switches, well, right now, the court, or the OCR order says village and DOT, so both of those entities are on the hook for the order. To date, WISDOT, for the reasons that have already been discussed, has kind of taken the lead in the actual project implementation. What Trustee Grabowski is suggesting is that change, and the village take the reins. And by doing that, the WISDOT and the village are still both under the thumb of the OCR, under the order. But if we're taking the reins in the project, naturally, we're the ones that have to follow up with it.
So WISDOT has communicated with us that if we wish them to not do the work, they will say okay. Because then they know in the CYA world, they're off the hook. That if something happens, like because again, we have to give permission for them to come in and do the work. If we say, no, you're not doing this, and then a catastrophic event happens, then they go, hey, they told us we didn't have to lengthen these medians, you know, they're off the hook.
And that's really not a tenable position for the village
Correct.
either, because we're still under the OCR order, so if we're
Correct.
taking an action to prevent DOT from otherwise complying with the order, that's just the same as us not complying.
So what I'm saying is WISDOT is not chomping at the bit to do this. They're being forced to do this. They didn't want to earmark money for this. They considered the project done on their end, because now this is coming out of their budget. This isn't coming out of the federal funding that helped the first project get done. So they're begrudgingly doing this in 2026 from my interpretation. To where, like I said, they would walk away if we told them to walk away, because then that puts the liability on us. But we don't have that option, because we can't take that liability, and we can't, you know, we do want to improve the safety of that crossing. So that's what I'm saying. I feel like this is the compromise of, we take that liability, tell them we will manage the project. They get satisfied with that, because now they have the documentation saying that we are taking on the responsibility of the project. And then we take all reasonable steps to comply with that OCR order. And yes, the lengthening of the median is part of it, as well as signage, as well as, you know, clear signage, notifications, still the media, or still potential some bollards, all that. Like it's the main component of complying is making those medians permanent and longer than what is currently in the design. Like you can't, because to put it in perspective, if you say, you know, reasonable, I mean, heck, we can extend it all the way down to past Harvest Home. That doesn't stop somebody from putting a left turn signal on to crack a U-turn to go back and turn. You know, so you can extend the median all the way to Capitol. That doesn't mean someone's not gonna do something stupid that queues cars all the way up. You can't fix stupid in the world.
But the length is,
But as long as we take the measures that show that we're serious about, you're not supposed to turn left there,
yeah,
then that complies.
but it's the length that the order is saying.
There is no length in the order, that's what I'm saying.
So,
All the order says is the village and DOT have to put in permanent measures to prevent a left turn south on Clark, north on the.
so we could just put up a sign.
Technically, there's nothing that says they actually have to be lengthened. It's just that when WISDOT was there doing a study of it, somebody made a left turn and they go, a median should probably be longer. And rather than, it's the give an inch, take a mile, rather than make it a foot or two longer, they've made it 30 feet longer.
Right.
So all the OCR says it has to have permanent measures in place to deter the left turn, to prevent queuing over the tracks. WISDOT took design liberty with it and said, well, I was there, I saw somebody turn left with the current length, it's gotta be a lot longer. There's nothing in the order that says it has to be a lot longer. There's no quantifiable length that median needs to be extended. So by us taking whatever measures to extend it, make it permanent, and do all the signage and everything else, shows that we are taking every reasonable step possible to mitigate that left turn.
The way that it's set up like right now, I know it's very temporary.
It is very long.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask you.
Yes. So that the Oakton side is short of what WISDOT has designed. And I know Director Beekle and Administrator Heiser and I felt that was kind of where it was before, with our temporary bollards and everything. The Capitol side is close, but I still think a little bit short of what WISDOT designed. And as Supervisor Bickler pointed out, it basically steers people into oncoming traffic to make that left turn. So there is no design presented at this point from a village standpoint, but we do recognize that there is an added safety concern with the length of the current temporary situation. Because
You can't really tell with the sign either, if you can't turn left until you get really close.
correct, yeah, that could probably be angled a little
Yeah.
bit.
Okay, thank you for the
Yes,
clarification.
yeah, so that has been taken into consideration.
So do you feel that the medians are needed?
I feel to show the OCR that we're serious with going into an application for a quiet zone. I think the minimal cost that it would potentially be to the village then shows in any possible future situation, and again, Attorney Gerlinski, I'm not speaking from, but to show that we are taking liability serious and that we have taken steps to eliminate that showing that OCR said you need to be more serious about this. Well, how could we show we're any more serious than us spending our own money to lengthen these medians and make this permanent?
Right. The bottom line is you need a permanent measure in place to prevent those two left turns.
Yeah.
That's what the order said.
And they weren't,
Interpreted in many ways.
That's, I'm just quoting the order for you.
Yeah. So do we need to make a motion to direct the attorney to notify WISDOT that we intend to take this over and we do not approve of your designs or the right of way to work in our village?
That's certainly an action the board could take. Another approach would be to, I don't know, have we had any feedback from WISDOT, Administrator Heiser, as to their willingness to amend the design?
No, I don't have any feedback on that particular question. Well, I guess what I would recommend, if Attorney Gerlinski is comfortable with it, is the motion would be for staff to work with DOT, because their attorneys haven't been involved yet. Director Beekle and I have been working with their engineers and stuff. So I would think it'd be appropriate to start it there. It could certainly escalate to the point of view if we're experiencing different.
How about a motion to direct staff to inquire with WISDOT to amend current drawings? Trying to think how to word it though, and then I'm just trying to avoid it having to come back in front of the board for another follow-up to now say, oh, they said they weren't going to amend it. All right, now a motion to take over the project. Can we just do that in one?
That's not the worst outcome in my opinion.
Go?
Because then you have, we can at least take that approach. I understand that the desire to have this wrapped up in a relatively timely fashion, but in my mind, it's not the worst thing to have this come back before the board because it is such a serious issue. That we at least make that outreach from WISDOT, get an answer, something from them that says either no, we're holding firm to this design, or no. And then the board can react to that and say, well, if they're gonna dig in on this, then we really need to take the reins on it. But in my mind, that's not the worst thing to have it come back. Maybe the initial motion is just to have staff make an outreach and get that feedback and willingness to WISDOT.
Do we have a recommended design to give them? Because they might just come back and say, well, we'll cut off a foot, median, and then they're like, well, that didn't do anything.
I think that would be up to staff, be it administrator and Director Beekle, to propose an amendment to the, opposed to just asking, you're right, opposed to just asking them, will you amend this? And they go, like what, 6 inches? Like,
Yeah, to what?
to propose an amended drawing to WISDOT.
Yeah, with recommendations from our
Yes,
engineer.
yes. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that should be the direction of staff, to present an amended drawing to WISDOT.
Right. And then ask for approval on that amended drawing.
Right.
Are we making is that a motion now?
Would you go ahead?
You rock it, you got it. I'll second it.
I'll make a motion to direct staff to present an amended drawing to WISDOT for the permanent medians on Capitol and Oakton.
Second, Stout.
Do we have a motion and a second? Further discussion?
Just for the discussion piece.
Yes.
And so staff is
Mhm.
clear on what the amendment is supposed to address. Really, the main goal of the board is to preserve that left, the
Correct.
innocent bystanders, you said, Trustee Gabrowski, that left turn back to center.
Correct.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's hereby carried. Is there a question? Next is that Board of Appeals. First sentence here.
Yeah, why don't you just read the first sentence?
Okay. Item D is review, discussion, and possible action proposed extension of an agreement with the city of Pewaukee for building inspection services. I hope everybody's looked them over, and if there's any questions. Matt, do you want to just discuss a little bit? If the board decides they want to go into closed session to discuss the changes as far as costs and that, we will then go into closed session. Otherwise, if they're okay with what Matt tells us about the changes, we'll just stay in open session.
Thanks, President Knudsen. So the contract that the village has with the city, building inspection services, will expire at the end of this year. And the city staff has proposed a new contract with general services. From village staff perspective, we're happy with the services we get with the city. And the only changes in the contract are some inflationary cost increases. Staff understands that historically, the village has gone into closed session to discuss agreements with the city before, so that option is for you. But there's nothing confidential nature that I need.
Are there any questions or comments? If there are none, would someone like to make a motion to accept or deny the
So just for clarification's sake, so the amount that is that's crossed out and the new amount that was put into F, that we're gonna pay the lump sum. What was the lump sum before? Or is that not? Okay.
No, it is.
Yeah.
Just a question. The confidential part or the closed session, just for the board's edification, is if, you know, you're seeing this for the first time, right? If discussion, and we talked about this, if discussion ensued where the board felt that some sort of strategy or counteroffer needed to be made, that's where you would go into closed session. The questions about nuts and bolts, that's fine.
Okay, I'm curious, like, what was it before? How did these two numbers come to be now at this time?
Yeah, so the new numbers are, because the city is changing their software that they use to track and administer building permits. And they're going to be going exclusively to a cloud storage, is my understanding. And so that's the, the percentage of that number is the percentage of the cost based on village activity.
Okay, so that's like that's the total number that is being paid by the city for the software and the programs. And then that's the amount that we are,
I'm assuming the 7890 was what it was prior, and that's being updated in this current contract.
Right.
That was prior, our old contract is what we paid. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right, so the old amount was
Their software's gone down.
$7,890, and the new amount is $2,992.
oh, okay, my apologies. I thought the 78 was what, like, they were proposing and we were changing it to 2992. That's not correct. That's what we used to pay, and this is the new
Correct.
number.
That's
Oh,
correct.
okay.
Correct. Yeah, the red lines you see are mostly from the city. I don't think I had any change.
Oh,
You
okay.
had that one,
I might have had a clarifying comment, but
Yeah.
the substantive changes are from the city.
yeah, right.
Then I'd have no more questions.
Are there any other questions or comments? Again, do I have a motion?
I can make a motion to approve the proposed extension of the agreement with the city of Pewaukee for building inspection services.
Second, Pater.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Item E, review, discussion, and possible action regarding occupancy at Simmons Woods Park, PWV 0897984 west of State Highway 16. It's something that we just fell into here just recently. Matt, you want to just give a little overview of what's going on?
Yes, please, President Knudsen. This agenda item actually is kind of split into two pieces, so there is a closed session portion of it that'll come after. But the open session piece is just a very general background as to what the issue is. This is the first time that the board as a body is hearing about this. So Simmons Woods Park is a fairly large park that actually Highway 16 kind of cuts off a little piece of it. And there's somebody who was not a village resident but came to the village expressing a concern that there were boats being stored in this park portion. And when staff looked into it, and you know, there was confusion up front because staff was unaware that this piece was part of the park, and the original complaint had the erroneous address. So it took us a little while and some dialogue to actually narrow it down. But yes, this is part of Simmons Woods Park, and there are boats being stored on it. And our Parks Director, Nick Phelan, went and talked to the occupant, who informed him that there was supposedly a 20-year informal verbal agreement to do this with the village. And we don't have any record of this agreement on file. So now that this has come to light, the village needs to deal with it.
Just to clarify that, it was a handshake agreement 20 years ago, not one 20 years.
Thank you, Nick.
And as Administrator Heiser alluded to, this is slated for also closed session discussion later on in the meeting. Again, for the board's information, why this is agendized this way, we have talked in the past on how case law updates require now, or clarify the requirement for open session discussion to precede closed session. But the board also was uncomfortable in the past with when we had items, multiple items slated for closed session, going in, then out, then in, then out. So the way to address that is to stack essentially the open session items, introduce them in open session as were required, with the understanding that a closed session is going to occur later on in the agenda. So I think the administrator did a great job of introducing the topic. There's a number of ramifications and possible ways to resolve the issue that we're going to discuss. And one of them, frankly, involves potential litigation, so that's why it's slated for closed session discussion later on. So I think that exhausts the open session portion of this. But if there's any questions, we can certainly address them. Otherwise, we'll address them later on in the agenda.
Okay. Item F, review, discussion, and possible action on Waukesha County case 2022 CV 515 WMC versus Village of Pewaukee.
This is active litigation that the board is has been informed on in the past, and staff and the village attorney through, or I guess litigation counsel through myself, village attorney, would just like to provide the board a brief update on that item. Again, slated for closed session.
Okay, and then item G. The Village Board of Village of Pewaukee will enter in closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute section 1985 1G for conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is likely to become involved, specifically regarding occupancy Simmons Woods Park PWV 0897984 west of State Highway 16 in Waukesha County case 2022 CV 515 WMC versus Village of Pewaukee. After conclusion of any closed sessions, the village board will reconvene in open session pursuant to Wisconsin statute section 1985-2 for the possible additional review, discussion, and action concerning these agenda items and to address the remaining meeting agenda. I'll look for a motion to go into closed session, please.
Motion to go into closed session. Rhodey?
Second.
Roll call vote, please. Jenna?
Trustee Stauff,
Yes.
Trustee Rhodey,
Yes.
Trustee Belt,
Yes.
Trustee Pater,
Yes.
Trustee Kreiser,
Yes.
Trustee Grabowski,
Yes.
President Knutson.
Yes, we are hereby in closed session. Okay, nobody out there?
Let's go.
Okay, we are now in open session.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Is